Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast, live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, and Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. We air Monday and Thursday nights live and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. Like with the Astros in the playoffs, like with the Texans all season long. It's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. You ever have a question, you can send it gallantsays@gmail.com. It is Thursday, January 18th, 2024. The Houston Texans play the Baltimore Ravens Saturday, 3:30 in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium. I'm not going to act like I'm a weather guy. I'm not a meteorologist. Never took a meteorology class. I just got an iPhone, and I looked at the weather app, and it says that there's an 80% chance of snow on Friday, so maybe some of it sticks, and it should be between 23 and 18 degrees from start to finish of the game on Saturday. But doesn't look like there's going to be any precipitation. Maybe there's going to be some winds. I'm going to pat myself on the back, show solidarity with the Houston Texans earlier in the week, and you can check this out on my YouTube channel or wherever you follow me. Your boy walked 1.1 miles to work, 1.1 miles back from work in the frigid cold of Houston, Texas. And it was cold here in Houston. It was 22 degrees. The Houston Texans practiced outside in that cold weather. The Baltimore Ravens, I guess, practiced at least earlier this week when it was cold here in Houston inside. Interesting. What else is going on before we actually dive into the nitty-gritty of this game and let more people join the chat? Shout out to Jesus Sanchez, Jack Steele, and Dirty Hobo on youtube.com/Paul Gallant in the comments section. Here's the latest injury news. Ravens tight end Mark Andrews has been out for a couple of months with an ankle injury. He was a full participant in practice both today, Thursday, we're recording this on, Wednesday as well. He has to be activated at some point on Friday in order to play. So he's been designated to return from injured reserve, and he's been practicing, but he still technically isn't activated. And from what I read, it's touch and go when it comes to whether or not he'll play in that game. I really think that he should think about his health, the long-term future of his ankle. As somebody who is dealing with some plantar fasciitis, it sucks when your ankle starts to hurt all of a sudden, So, Mark, I think you've earned a day of rest. Yeah, just sit back, watch the game on Saturday. The other Ravens tight ends got it. I don't know who the fuck they are. They got it. It's fine. Just take a break. Crack open a cold one. Get some crab cakes. I know that crab cakes in football is what Maryland does, but how about double the crab cakes and zero of the football? That sounds great to me, especially since David Njoku and that other fucking guy whose name I keep forgetting had such easy big gains against the Texans on Saturday at NRG Stadium. Marlon Humphrey, their best cornerback, he is out. Ronald Darby, though, might be the best cornerback on that team. He's going to be good to go. Jadeveon Clowney, remember him? He was out of a practice earlier this week with an illness. Zay Flowers, the Ravens rookie receiver, who we all saw week one and who looks like a really good player. I think he's one of the few guys that you look at in the draft and think, okay, well, maybe that's one of the players that you weren't able to get because you made the Will Anderson trade, but obviously you're not taking him top 10. And you got Tank Dell, who's also a smaller, fast, quick receiver. But Flowers in space is a pretty special player. So looks like he's going to be good to go. For the Texans, Jerry Hughes out again. Not that surprising. A bummer, though. I was hoping that Jerry Hughes would get to play in these playoffs. Honestly, the more pass rushers that you have to throw at a Lamar Jackson, the better your chances. George Fant is questionable with an illness. Will Anderson, Jonathan Grenard, who took a step back on the injury report from Tuesday to Wednesday, they look like they're good to go, along with Blake Cashman and Christian Harris and Denzel Perriman and Sheldon Rankins. Also, Robert Woods, John Mechie, all expected to play. No Noah Brown, he's out for the year. So that's the injury news. And the, I guess, controversy that is taking place today when it comes to Texans discourse is that Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans, who earlier in the week said that his focus is entirely on the Baltimore Ravens, did a Zoom interview with the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of people are pissed off. Well, one, if you're up in that spot and you're being asked by the local media if you're about to do a job interview somewhere, especially considering your coaching before what's one of the most important games in the history of Houston football, definitely one of the most important games in the history of the Houston Texans. They've been to this round 4 times. They've lost all 4 times. What are you going to say if you get asked about it? Of course you're going to say, no, my focus is on the task at hand. But you'd be a fucking idiot to not take a head coaching interview. Even if it is with David Tepper, control freak, even if it would be working with Bryce Young, who does not look like he is going to be a successful pro in the NFL, partly due to his size. We all thought that Carolina situation, and I don't know if we did, but everyone said the Carolina situation was great going into the year. Now everyone's acting like it never had a chance. Okay, I guess I don't know, but if you're Bobby Slowick, this is akin to you got a wife, you got a job, you got kids. This is akin to you taking time to do a job interview of your own. You know, is a 15-minute Zoom interview, is a hour-long Zoom interview, is that going to take a ton of time away from Bobby Slowick and preparing for the Ravens? If you know the life of a coach, these guys work ridiculous hours. So I understand the idea that, hey, maybe his mind is elsewhere. Well, wouldn't yours too? If you have an opportunity to be a head coach, number one. And number two, these guys work such long hours. I don't think it's going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. I know some people are going to get upset about that, but truly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And as someone who has asked coaches and players questions, I've been lied to before. You got to take everything they say with a grain of salt. When I was in Seattle, during one of our Pete Carroll shows, we used to have Pete Carroll on my radio show after every single game. I remember asking him, hey, are you going to bring back your offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer at the time? He said yes. They fired him literally hours later. Now, perhaps things changed between then and whenever they sat down and eventually that decision was made. But this happens a lot. Don't make too much of it. It's not that big of a deal, at least to me. Let's read some comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Arthur Foxake asks, is Paul older or younger than McClain? Jesus Christ. Do I look that old? Honestly, Arthur, I'm taking that as a shot. JAM asks, hola, Paul. ¿Cómo estás, amigo? Vamos, Texans. You can do it. I didn't take Spanish, but that means, hello, Paul. How are you, friend? Let's go, Texans. Huzzah. Also, you need some Just for Men. Looking too gray. It's the beard. I'm growing the beard out. Number one. It's playoff beard. Anyone know about that tradition in hockey? I'm growing the beard out. I'm told that people like the salt and pepper. I agree. I hate seeing it. There's a reason that my beard is usually very, very trim. But I'm growing this thing out. And yeah, there's some white in it. I refuse to dye my hair. I refuse. I'm not going to do it up here. There's some gray up here. I'm not going to do it down here either. But yeah, I'm 34, and I guess this is the price of constantly being stressed and drinking more coffee than Tweak from South Park. Grafa asks, how was your day, Paul? Today's the greatest day of my life. Tomorrow's the greatest day of my life. Saturday's the greatest day of my life. I sound like a cultist whenever I say that. Texas Tax, that's like working at Saltgrass, but interviewing for the manager at a Taco Bell spot, talking about Bobby Slowick interviewing with the Carolina Panthers. Is Saltgrass Saltgrass is an interesting choice. It's been a while since I've gone to Saltgrass. Saltgrass is pretty good. I think that was the first restaurant that I went to when I came down here, and I loved the Corona Rita. Does Taco Bell offer like great options like Waffle House management does? Siraj asks, where are we watching the game Saturday? I'm going to be watching the game at the ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 studios. For those who do not know, we are doing a post-game show on the radio right afterwards. It's going to be me, Michael Connor, who you might know from his time at 790, from his time now on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and his co-host on the show right after mine on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and the old producer of the Paul Gallant Show back in the day, Josh Beard. So we're going to be doing that show. I think it'll go about 2 hours. I will also do a live stream on this. Don't you fret. Mario Cordova says, Slowick needs to do these interviews to keep his option open. I think he'll return for another year. I do as well, but again, who knows? If they win this game, if Bobby Slowick outduels Mike McDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator, who's also a head coaching candidate, there's going to be a lot of people calling. He's obviously going to want a good situation for him, but head coach money is life-changing money. He's young, too, so if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that's going to happen, you know? Oh, he's going to get another assistant coaching job somewhere else? So that's something to keep in mind. Toro Johnson says, femboy Paul. Fuck you, Toro. Dirty Hobo says, I think Slowick would take the interviews out of respect, but to be part of something special in Houston, that's hard to pass up. Look, guys, season's not done. This is just how it works. Every single year. If your team does well and you got good coordinators, or if you have coordinators who conceptually are good and maybe aren't, they're going to get interviewed. That's how it works. Steve Beckholt, what's up, Ultimate Texan? What up, baby? I'm wondering if Steve's going all the way up to Baltimore. Steve is the Houston Texans fan of the year. Shout out to you, buddy. Jason asks, like David Culley said on Twitter, there's only 32 of these jobs. I don't blame Slowick for interviewing. Don't blame him. It's a natural part of just the way that the NFL season works. And yeah, it sucks that it's during the playoffs, but I doubt that this is going to be a major distraction for Texans players. And that's really all that matters right now. Now, if they lose, yeah, it's going to come up. It's going to come up. Is it fair that it would come up? Probably not, but it's going to come up. All right. We'll get back to some more of your comments. I just wanted to offer this note before we dive into this. Jacoby Jones is going to be the Ravens legend of the game, which is, for the real ones, the guys who have been following the Houston Texans for a while, it was quite the troll job by Baltimore. Now, he is a Ravens legend. He caught the game-winning touchdown pass in that the game-tying touchdown pass in that amazing Ravens-Broncos game that started Joe Flacco's crazy run during the 2012-2013 playoffs, where somehow, some way, Raheem Moore, who the Texans would sign after this game, just completely fucks up on a deep ball to Jacoby Jones. Like, he jumped up, but he mistimed the jump. Jacoby catches the ball, takes it to the house, tie game, goes to double overtime where the Ravens ultimately won, and the rest is history. They beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Jacoby Jones also had a kick return for a touchdown in that game. So he is a Ravens legend, even though he cut his teeth with the Houston Texans and honestly gave the Baltimore Ravens a playoff win when he was playing for what I think is probably the best and most loved team in Houston Texans history, the 2011 team, which is the team that won the AFC South for the first time and made the playoffs despite being down to a third-string quarterback after injuries to first Matt Schaub and then Matt Leinart. It was T.J. Yates. So, yeah, there you go. Suraj comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. The Titans tried trolling the Texans a week ago. It didn't pan out too well. Yeah, but here's the thing, guys. The Titans suck. The Ravens are really, really good. You will not get any disrespect from me towards the Baltimore Ravens. It's one of a few organizations in the NFL that I begrudgingly respect. Growing up rooting for my Patriots, somebody asked me about the Gerard Mayo hire. We'll see. I don't know. I'm living in a different world these days. But growing up rooting for the Patriots, that was one of two teams that always gave New England trouble. And I guess you could argue any team that Peyton Manning was on. But for the most part, it was the Giants and the Ravens who were the most annoying teams for the Patriots. Both of those teams beat the Patriots in the playoffs twice. Steve says he's going to Kansas City or Buffalo if they get there. Knock on wood. Not going to Baltimore. All right. I wanted to address a couple of things that have been said during the week by Houston Texans players, and I'm really glad the way that they've handled this. And I talked about this on my show today, and there's a clip up on my Twitter and on my YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all that shit about it. I think for some people, Texans fans, there's this idea that, wow, this is like the honeymoon phase. This is just incredible that they've made it thus far. Sit back and appreciate it, but this is the start of something special. 100% sit back and appreciate it. It's been a long fucking 3 years. Sit back and appreciate it. It's very hard to do what the Texans have done overnight. And yeah, DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, they lucked into both maybe, you could argue. But they are here. That said, nothing is guaranteed in the NFL. And this idea that the Texans have nothing to lose going into these playoffs really takes a sense of urgency out of the whole thing, right? Like, oh, they're young, they'll be back. It's not always true. And that team I just talked about, the 2011-2012 Houston Texans, that's a perfect example of that. Did we not think that that team was going to do something in 2013? Yeah, the end of 2012 was awful. You know, they start off 11-1, they lose 3 of 4, and yeah, they beat the Bengals in a sloppy playoff game, and then they get beaten by the Patriots handily again. That was it. In 2013, I mean, geez, what a disaster. And, I mean, they did win the first 2 games of that year. They were 2-0, but, you know, from the Richard Sherman pick 6 to send the game to overtime against the Seahawks and ultimately launch the Seahawks dynasty to the end of the year. It was a nightmare. And they have not been back to that level since. They have had competitive teams, no doubt, under Bill O'Brien. 2018, 2019, they looked like they had a chance. 2018, they win the 9 games in a row. That was my last year in Houston. 2019, they beat the Bills. They're up 24-7 on the Chiefs. They've had some moments, but it never felt like 2011 and 2012, and that was a totally separate era. And yeah, ultimately you're hoping to have CJ Stroud as your quarterback for the next 10-plus years, and DeMeco Ryans too. But nothing's guaranteed, and just to point to the opportunity at hand right now, there's no one team in the AFC that's like leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. The Ravens are the best team in the AFC based off of what they've done this year. There's no denying that. The last 6 games that they've tried, they have fucking kicked ass. Again, I have all the deference in the world for Baltimore. There's a lot of people that are like, you think Lamar Jackson sucks. No, I think Lamar Jackson's a top 5 quarterback. I just think that I would take CJ Stroud over Lamar Jackson. Like, we're being snobs here, like choosing between the best options on the top shelf, and it's a matter of taste at that moment in time. But if you take a look at the rest of the AFC, I mean, this is a down year for the Chiefs. The Bills have figured things out of late, but they're dealing with some injuries on the defensive side of things. And this was a year for you where you get 10 wins largely thanks to a schedule that was very favorable to you. And yeah, you beat some good teams along the way. You beat the Bucs, you beat the Steelers as far as playoff teams go. The Bengals were good when Joe Burrow was healthy. You beat the Jaguars the first time between those two teams. You beat the Browns in the playoffs. You beat the Colts the last game of the year. Like, there are some impressive wins on the Texans' schedule, don't get me wrong. But they have not played, since week 1, a team of this caliber. There are classes in the AFC. And because they haven't played teams of that schedule, that's how they found their way, that they stumbled backwards into winning the AFC South, because the Jaguars fell apart. The Jaguars were supposed to be one of those 4 teams. They're not. So this year has been advantageous for you. And, you know, I could go in depth about the Texans' cap situation and contracts going forward. There will be some changes from next year. Some. And the schedule is going to be more difficult next year. And the Colts might be a more competitive team with Anthony Richardson under center all year. So there are challenges that pop up every single year, and it's one of the reasons that you take a look back at Dan Marino's career. He makes the Super Bowl his second year, and everyone's like, oh my God, look at what the Dolphins just did with Dan Marino. And then he never went back. So I'm not trying to pee in anyone's Cheerios here. I'm just saying, no one can take this for granted. The old players on the Texans, they know this. But the young players, this idea of playing with house money, it's bullshit. There's no such thing as house money in the NFL. You get a very few opportunities to do this over the course of your career. Just ask J.J. Watt about it. And then it's done. So this might be their best shot. It might. And anything is possible in the NFL. Shit's crazy. We saw what the Bengals did a couple years ago, making it to a Super Bowl. Who thought they were going to do that? We like Joe Burrow, but fuck, a Zach Taylor coach team? We're going to go on the road and beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game? Crazy shit happens. I'm not dismissing anything this year. This team is starting to make me believe in a way that I have not felt about any football team in the city of Houston ever. Ever. For me, I feel like that's pretty high praise considering I grew up a Patriots fan. But nothing's guaranteed in this thing. All right, let's read some comments. There's a couple other little subtopics that I want to get into. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant, Twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter @Gallant Says. Jason says, I dig the troll job. It is a good troll job by the Ravens with the Jacoby Jones stuff. Ricardo Villarreal says, Baltimore's a beast. Sorry if I butchered your pronunciation. But when you have seen it, reversed it, and know what the handshake is going to be, covers eyes, Texans 54. I don't know. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know what that means, sir. I don't know. Is that an inside job? True to Bust Down says, I think CJ is going to outplay Lamar Jackson. I think CJ will definitely throw better passes than Lamar Jackson, and that's not me saying Lamar Jackson can't throw. Ravens fans and Lamar Jackson stands get so fucking sensitive when you say, like, hey, I think he's a good thrower of the football. I just don't think he's on the same level of CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's ball placement is elite. One of the more accurate quarterbacks I can remember in his first season. It's not an indictment of Lamar Jackson, who I love watching and have always rooted for. I thought he was awesome at Louisville. I thought back at Louisville, when they had 3 losses and they had lost to the University of Houston, even though they had the 3 losses, I was like, I don't want to fucking watch Washington in the college football playoff. Fuck that. They're boring. With Jake Browning. Interesting that Jake Browning, we saw a lot of him this year. Fuck that. I want to see 3-loss Louisville and Lamar Jackson in the college football playoff. Fuck it. That would draw the most eyeballs. And I think the college football playoff cares a little bit more about eyeballs sometimes than they actually care about the 4 best teams. So I've always liked Lamar Jackson a lot. And I have a lot of respect for him. And I thought that this year would be a good year for him, finally out of the Greg Roman offense. But it's weird how sensitive Lamar Jackson fans get. Like, I'm not Bill fucking Polian. I'm not saying he should play wide receiver. I'm just saying I prefer CJ Stroud's passing to his. But it always gets turned into, you're a hater. No, I'm just choosing what I like better. Jesus Christ. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Jack Steele predicts Ravens 35, Texans 17. That would make me sad. Mario Cordova is predicting a 31-28 Texans win. That would be fun. Waka Flocka Bucks comments, next year's first place schedule, twitch.tv/Gallant says, will be fun. Lots of good regular season games will be on national TV for once. Yeah, you might get a Thursday game. You might get a Sunday night game. You might get a Monday game. That would be nice for me. I'd like to not have to wake up at noon every Sunday. For those who don't know, I still probably drink a little bit more than I should. I like to have fun on the weekends, and I have had to relax it a little bit on Saturdays going into Sundays because of it. And you know what? I mean, there are days where I get to the stadium 10 to 20 minutes before. I'm not hungover. I'm showered. I'm looking pretty and everything like that. But fuck, I just want to sleep in. Every game was at noon this year. Until now, all of a sudden, all the games were Saturday nights. Oh, boy. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, seeing a lot of predictions in the chat. Pesky says playoff Lamar going to show up. I'm not even going to say that, but his record in the playoffs to this point definitely leaves something to be desired. There's no denying that. And I know that'll bother some Ravens fans, but hey, this might be the year. Zay Flowers is better than anyone they had last year. The Mark Andrews status is big for this game, but even though Odell Beckham Jr. isn't the same guy, and Odell Beckham Jr. blocked me for some stupid bullshit. I don't even remember what it is, but he blocked me. Yeah. I don't know why he blocked me. But hey, man. Hey. He's better, you know? I got a tweet. Rockets Vic says, you didn't feel like the Letterman team would make it to the Super Bowl. This is on Twitter. Gallant says, no, I did not. I thought they were frauds. And I remember when I first moved to Houston, I was kind of a dick with my ultra condescending looking down on anyone that wasn't the New England Patriots. Was it justified? Kind of, but you get what I'm saying here, you know? You get what I'm saying. I had come from like the best football fanhood possible. Everything at that moment in time, I was like, not a Super Bowl, not an undefeated regular season. I think I'm a little bit better on that front now. Part of it has to do with the fact that the Patriots have sucked since 2019. Anyway, at least by those standards. There's been this really annoying narrative that has popped up this week as we talk about the Ravens and the Texans because these two teams played each other in week 1. D'Amico Ryans said it. CJ Stroud said it. Bobby Slowick said it. Any Texan who you ask about this, if you ask like, hey, you know, like it's a rematch of a game earlier this year, they're all going to tell you, yeah, but it's different. We're different. We've changed. Heard that from Lamar Jackson and Roquan Smith on the Ravens side of things too. Yeah, no shit. The question doesn't even need to be asked. This is me talking to all the media folks out there, the people that go into the locker room every single day. No fucking shit, it's different. And all of these teams improve as the season goes along. Tell me about a team, now that we've gotten rid of one bye, team with a bye per conference in the playoffs. Tell me about a team that did not improve as the season went along. Tell me about one that made it to this point in the year. The Ravens sure as shit did. The last 6 games that they tried in, they were killing teams. The Texans got a lot better down the stretch. The Bills, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Sean McDermott having tried to use 9/11 attackers as part of a speech. They've rallied since then. I think the Chiefs are maybe the one team where it seems like they've been level all year long, but they're the fucking Chiefs, you know? They're the defending champs. Every team in the NFL that is good gets better as the season progresses, especially the ones that make it to the second round. The Eagles, they suck down the stretch. They're gone. The Bucks got better. They're still hanging around. The Cowboys, I guess you could argue that it wasn't like the best final stretch for them, that maybe they were also dealing with some issues of their own. Off the top of my head, I honestly forget what they went through. Really, that game against the Packers just like changes so many opinions that you have about them. But the Dolphins, the same thing. You know, they lost that game to the Ravens. You're like, what? This isn't happening. There's a lot of teams that fell apart down the stretch too. They're no longer here. Every team is different than what they were in week 1, especially the team starting a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. But the Ravens are in their own way too. Todd Monken, it was his first game as offensive coordinator. Lamar Jackson didn't play. It was the first time he was working with Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr. and Mark Andrews was banged up. Like every team is better from week 1 to where they are now, even with all the injuries that they dealt with. Teams get better as the season goes along. Guys who don't normally get playing time, and you find out, oh, this guy's actually a decent player from time to time. Next man up. The good teams get better. This idea, like, everyone's like, yeah, we're different. Oh, yeah? Well, we're more different. Shut the fuck up. This is such a stupid fucking storyline. God, I don't, like, yeah, no shit. Everyone knows. It's not the first week of the fucking season. It's been 20 games since then. Ben Watson says, this is good stuff, Paul, from a Ravens fan. Appreciate you stopping by, Ben. Ravens and Texans are both great teams in their own way. This game is going to be fun. I hope so. There is a part of me in the back of my head that is nervous about what the Ravens can do to good teams, because they've killed good teams in the 3 games that they've played most recently. They fucking killed the 49ers, who are arguably the best team in the league. Can't really make that argument for the 49ers over the Ravens after that game, since it was so recent. They killed the Jaguars. Jaguars shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game. And they really killed the Dolphins. Like they basically ended their season. I know that Dolphins continue to play, but man, they just fell apart down the stretch. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Chew to Bust Down says, I got a feeling the Texans are going to win. I'm not going to lie. Like, that feeling exists inside me. But, it's hard to pull the trigger and confidently say it this time around. Dr. Hue says potato-headed Chris Sims says the Ravens are going to rout the Texans, so that means the Texans will win. Maybe, maybe not. Here's my thing about predictions, too, and I know a lot of people are throwing up predictions there, and I think some people believe that those in our industry who are good at making predictions, like they're the best people in our industry. I don't believe that's the case. Like I have no idea what's going to happen on Saturday. No one has any idea what's going to happen on Saturday. It's any given Sunday for a reason in the NFL, and I really do get annoyed by people that are constantly patting themselves on the back for correct predictions, including myself. Like I predicted the Texans would go 10-7, but it was based off of vibes. It wasn't based off of anything that I had in front of me. There's no evidence there. But this is one of those games where like I feel very confident saying I'm unconfident in what's going to happen. Paul, you're running on the fence. No, I just don't think predictions ultimately matter. That's not my game, I guess, but mybookie.ag, promo code bet975. I think the spread is 9.5 still for the Ravens, which is a tad surprising. I would imagine that line has changed since a bunch of those injured Texans look like they are going to play. Chew to Bustdown says Pete Prisco picked the Texans in an upset. I love Pete. Pete has the biggest calves I've ever seen. Just a random side note. We've talked before. Polite. Strong opinioned. Pete also picked the Jaguars to be the best team in the NFL this year. So, again, predictions are like assholes. Everyone has them. And I really do not know what's going to happen. Dr. Hua says, how dare you be logical? I wish sometimes that I could be more illogical, but you start covering this for a while, you stop looking at it that way. One last thing before I give my two keys to the game. Remember last week how before the Texans and Browns game, there was bulletin board material that was given by former Texans tight end Jordan Akins? They're a good team, but we're a better team. And he also gave compliments to the Houston Texans. No doubt CJ Stroud's special, blah, blah, blah. There was also Ogbo Okoronkwo, who said, I'm going home, winning in my city. Can't write a better story than me. That, I guess, classifies as trash talk. One of the funny things I've come to really enjoy over the last couple of years covering sports is that athletes view any slights as disrespect, as bulletin board material. And now that we have social media, we become aware of all of it really quickly. And sometimes it's legitimate disrespect or trash talk. And I know growing up, a Patriots fan, I always used to believe that if somebody talked trash about the Patriots, they were fucked. They were just going to get their doors blown off. And you know what? Maybe Belichick did a lot better of cooking that bulletin board material into something that his team could consume and play better with. But as I've covered all of these sports and I see guys that are claiming disrespect for like, oh, I was drafted 9th overall. There's an NBA player, I think, who said that. You roll your eyes a little bit. So I haven't seen any trash talk between the Texans and Ravens for this game, which is good. This is not like the Bengals and Chiefs where every like Burrowhead Stadium, how dare they? And the Chiefs overlooking the Bengals. Like, fuck off. It's just over the top. But I haven't seen any of that this week. But I do think the Texans are like really leaning into this us against the world mentality. And does it help them? I'm not sure. Alex Bachman and Brady Breeze, these are actual Houston Texans players. We don't see them a lot. I think they're practice squad players. They made a couple of hats. It says, verse the world. And on top of that, it says Romans 12:2, which is a Bible verse. Quote, do not conform to the pattern of this word, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I don't know how that translates to the NFL. If somebody can figure that out for me, great. Honestly, sounds kind of goth. Do not conform. I'm not a conformist. Darkness consumes my soul. Huh. Such a conformist. Huh. I'm not. I'm a hipster. Sorry to dump on the Bible. I see conform. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. I do that. God, look at me. Am I being sacrilegious? Probably. Sorry. They've all got these hats. I don't really like the hats, but whatever. Hey, if it helps you, great. Nico Collins said, our backs are against the wall today. Will Anderson said, we know that everybody's going to be against us, man. I don't know. I think most people are rooting for the Texans in the AFC, and most people are rooting for the Lions in the NFC. The Texans are a very fun story this year. CJ Stroud's a lot of fun to watch, and you still got that used car smell. No one's turning on him yet. Patrick Mahomes used to be that guy. People are starting to turn on Patrick Mahomes, and it has nothing to do with him. It's like, oh, his wife's annoying. Oh, who doesn't have an annoying wife? Haha. I'm never getting married. Hashtag single forever. But like the stuff that people knock Mahomes for is, oh, his wife's annoying. Oh, his brother sucks. I would knock him for like he endorses State Farm, and State Farm fucking blows. But I had a horrible experience with them this summer. But looks like I might need to change car insurance again. I had Progressive. They just jumped my rate by $100. No one cares about that. You don't have that with Stroud now. You don't have that with D'Amico Ryans. People are rooting for the Texans. Maybe they're not picking the Texans, but I think a lot of people would like to see them win on Saturday, 3:30, with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call. I was looking for some things that I guess could be interpreted as bulletin board material. There's an article in The Athletic. Is CJ Stroud that much better than Bryce Young, or did he just land in a better situation? I suppose you could look at the quote by an anonymous executive that said, Houston is a better situation. If you drop Stroud in Carolina, would he have the same success? No way in hell. A lot of people are saying that. I feel like those are the people that just thought that Bryce Young was the better quarterback going into the draft. Honestly, I think they're full of shit at this point. I think if you've watched Bryce Young, you've seen a guy who is just very, very small. And yeah, okay, maybe his receiving core isn't great and his team isn't great, but everyone said he had the best situation to work with coming into the league. And now all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, actually, like it wasn't that good. No, you were wrong. Either you were wrong or, and you have to say, yeah, we were wrong about that. And then say this situation wasn't great, but no one's doing that. It's weird. Like we're doing this 180, but we're not explaining that we did a 180. We're just saying, oh, I hope no one checks my Twitter history to see what I was saying during the offseason. More bulletin board material. The Ravens' diet isn't very serious, and they eat Uncrustables. 7,500 Uncrustables all year. Uncrustables are very tasty. Honestly, you would think more. 53-man football team, 7,500. Is that like one a week? It's not that many, right? I'm not doing very good math here, am I? Probably not. Maybe that is a lot of Uncrustables. Maybe it was 75,000. The Ravens are eating Uncrustables before a game against the Texans. Do they take the Texans seriously? Hashtag bulletin board material. Like, again, that could be interpreted as bulletin board material in 2024. NBC allegedly edited out CJ Stroud thanking old Jesus Christ on NBC. That could be bulletin board material, but they're not playing on NBC. So there really isn't any. So I'm thankful for that. I don't want any bulletin board material before this game. Like, yeah, you should be motivated. You're playing a fucking playoff game. It's the divisional round of the playoffs. The Texans have never gotten further than this point in their history. I would hope that the Texans players are motivated. And if you're the Ravens, like, yeah, you got tons of motivation too. You look like the clear best team in the AFC. Lamar Jackson's got a lot of pressure on him to finally prove he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Let's see what happens. We got some more comments to get through before I give you my two final thoughts. Lorenzo Rogers says, if you don't notice, the Texans play up to their competition, but they don't play the sorry teams good. And I love it. We will be ready. That is fair. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to no-show against the Ravens. I do not, at least at this moment in time. Maybe at the end of the show, I'll change my mind. No, if I'm going to pick them. The Texans are playing really good right now, says Jam, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. They've unofficially won 2 playoff games, yep, against the Colts, against the Browns. They're hot. The Ravens have been doing parked idling. They better turn up the heat and warm up. It can theoretically be a drawback of having that first bye, but you have to win one last game, and it's hard to win a game in the NFL. Milan Lave says the Texans are going to expose Lamar Prescott. That's not fair to Lamar Jackson. Not yet. Maybe a couple years from now you can do that, but no. Jackson is a better player than Dak. And don't get me wrong, Dak's good, but Dak's just good enough to make you think you can make this work. And we've seen enough of him, I think, at this point in time to know it's not going to happen without some sort of miraculous Joe Flacco-esque run, and that just seems very unlikely. Toro with an interesting point. The Texans have gotten more religious after Jack Easterby left. He'd be proud. He got rid of Deshaun Watson, brought in the franchise savior Nick Caserio. That is an all-time spin zone. Wade Meadows says, I'm confidently unconfident. Yeah, that's true. Captain Crunch 72 says, color the gray away with just for men, beard and color for men. No more salt and pepper. You're not even 40. No. We're growing the beard out. It's a playoff beard. That's like performance-enhancing drugs. Can't do that. No. Don't tell me how to live my life. But I am, hopefully after a Super Bowl victory, shaving this beard and probably going beardless for a while after this is all said and done, because I do feel very old when the beard gets to this point. You guys are being dicks, just reminding me of how old I am with my salt and pepper. Reading some more comments. This is interesting, just from Dark to TH. I'm watching Norwegian boxing. What's that like? Do they do it outside? Is there snow? Choi's in the house on twitch.tv/Gallant says. Dark to TH says, love you, bro. I appreciate you. Blah, blah, blah. Thunderbolt 713 says, Lamar fumbles the ball a lot. Not as much as Trevor Lawrence. More comments. Scrolling through. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant again to join the show live. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, Jack Steele thinks, I believe more people want to see Lamar Jackson win in the playoffs than CJ. That's probably fair if we're talking about like fans of a player, and that is a new thing these days. It's part of the NBA kind of inserting itself, NBA fandom inserting itself into NFL fandom. And I like Lamar Jackson. Like, if the Ravens win, I will probably be rooting for the Ravens the rest of these playoffs. Patriots fan, I can't have Patrick Mahomes touching Tom Brady's records, and I can't have the Bills win. Bills fans are fucking insufferable. Got to keep them down, keep them in their place. But they are fun. They're just insufferable. Like, all of a sudden, oh, now you exist. When I was in college, like 2 hours away from you, I couldn't find any of you fuckers because you were all scared because we were busy beating you with a hammer every week. I'm talking about the Patriots. Oh, now all of a sudden, oh, now you're talking shit. Bullshit. You should have had to eat it. Take your flagellations. What do we got? YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Suraj, how dare they eat Uncrustables before a game? Yeah, that's basically, like, if you're looking for motivational fuel, I guess that's really all I got for the Ravens. They're not giving you much. Mac34 says Uncrustables are on point. They are very good. Put them in the fridge. Oh man, really good. Seriously. Stephen Daniel with a couple of comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Super proud of this team. Really made me happy this year. Yeah, I like it. Paul Lopez says, Bobby Slowick interviewed. We talked about this at the beginning of the live stream. I do not think it's a big deal at all. Life-changing money to be a head coach. Life-changing. You were offered that opportunity, even if you were in the peak season of whatever job you're at, you would at the very least pick up the phone, right? I don't think this is going to be a massive distraction. Coaches work such long hours. He is definitely still putting in the work. And don't get mad because a guy lies to the media. They do it all the time. It's not a big deal. I don't take it personally. I think the people that go there every day might, but you can be focused on the task at hand and do other things in your life. Mac34 asks, do you think Baltimore's home field crowd could disrupt CJ in the offense at least enough to affect the game? I mean, it could. It could. It's a pretty difficult place to play. The weather's not going to be great. They're definitely going to be lubed up for this one. It's 3:30 on a Saturday as opposed to noon. It's a playoff game. It's going to be a party. So there you go. It's Chewy says Twitch is better than YouTube. No, it's not. YouTube's better. I'm sorry. I can't get more of a following on Twitch. YouTube, this thing's blowing up of late. Blah 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 blah. Okay. we're going to wrap things up. I have two final thoughts. These are the two keys to the game. Hang on, I got a huck a loogie. This is pretty gross. You're welcome for that. I had a teammate in high school named Jake Stein. Great player. Went on to punt at Colgate. Led our county in rushing, even though we were playing at the lowest level. He would huck the boniest loogies. Ugh, still shudder thinking about it from time to time. Anyway, two keys to Texans and Ravens on Saturday. Number one, Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald is a hot head coaching candidate right now. And the reason is he's done a great job against coaches from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. And you could argue that was the case in Bobby Slowick's first go-round in the NFL, week 1. It was hard for the Texans offense to do much of anything. There were lots of injuries on the offensive line. It was C.J. Stroud's first game. So there were reasons for it. And Slowick talked about his perspective from that game to now, saying that he probably was trying to do a little bit too much 500-level courses compared to 100-level courses at college. This is a matchup between two possible future head coaches in the next couple of months. What is Slowick going to do different? Do they try to run the football? Didn't work with Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary in week 1. Much more Damian Pierce. Is Devin Singletary the key? Or is the key simply, yeah, you could do those things if you're Mike Macdonald against those Kyle Shanahan disciples, but the Texans have C.J. Stroud. We're going to find out the answer to that on Saturday. I honestly do not know the answer to that. And then, my other key is Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, with Zay Flowers, with Odell Beckham Jr., with Mark Andrews if he's healthy, and an entire season of offense. How much better are they going to look against a defense in the Texans that sure might have been going up against a rusty offense that didn't practice in the preseason, but the Texans defense played their ass off in that game. They were not the reason that they lost. Obviously, things have changed. Both teams have improved since that moment in time. But whatever D'Amico was throwing, and Matt Barker, their defensive coordinator, at Lamar Jackson worked, and it looks like everybody's going to be healthy. I do think this Ravens offense is a lot better than we've seen in years past. I do think Lamar Jackson is capable of throwing a football. I think Zay Flowers is great. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is a bit of an egomaniac and kind of a douche, but he's been competent this season. And this might come down to the guy that you drafted 3rd overall in last year's draft. Well, I guess technically the 2022 NFL draft, Derek Stingley. Is Stingley going to be able to erase Zay Flowers? Because if there's no Zay Flowers and if Mark Andrews isn't good to go, and it looks like it's touch and go whether or not he'll play, even though he's been at practice the last couple of days, that's going to put it all on Odell Beckham Jr. against Steven Nelson. And honestly, I don't know who wins that matchup because Steven Nelson has had his moments, but he's also had his moments where he hasn't looked so good. I point to that Browns game. He has the pick 6, but he had the play where he got toasted on a double move by David Njoku. So things to keep in mind. That might be the key right there. You know, a guy who used to be arguably the best receiver in the NFL and a cornerback who has been really good for the Texans, but maybe he's out of his weight class going up against someone like that. So those are my two keys to the game. I'm not making a prediction on this podcast. You want to get a prediction? Listen to my radio show about 11:50 or so Central Time, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. I appreciate everybody who has been supporting the live show the last couple of weeks and all the YouTube videos I put up. Really, it means a lot. It's been very cool to see this thing grow as much as it has. I miss talking about the Texans. You know, I worked at Sports Radio 610 for 8 years, and since I came back here, the last couple of months, it's been fun to talk to a city that likes to talk about football, because football is my favorite sport. Like, no offense to the Astros, it's football, NFL football over everything else for me. And I'm excited for this game on Saturday. If you don't tune into the radio show tomorrow, we will do a post-game show on our radio station, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. And a little bit after that, I will be doing another live stream after the game. I'm guessing it'll start like 9:30, 10 o'clock. It really depends on when I get home, when I get all my notes set up and all that stuff. But I'm excited for Saturday, and I appreciate you guys joining. So long. Farewell. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The handles are there. And subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating, a review, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been real. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And go Texans on Saturday.